Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Conor Sheedy, and I will be presenting today's Southern Talk. On behalf of General Coolidge and all of the staff here at the NATO Strategic Direction South Hub, or more simply the Hub, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you all. Today is the 16th of the Hub's Southern Talks. If you have not seen our previous Southern Talks, you can find them easily on our YouTube channel, which is at or ampersand NSD dash or hyphen hub. Please subscribe if you feel like it. And so to today's event. We are honored and delighted to welcome Brigadier General Luís Barroso to our Southern Talk today. Good afternoon, General.
Good afternoon, Juan.
General Barroso was born in Porto de Mos, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Leiria. He has been the commander of the European Union Military Assistance Mission in Mozambique since September 2024. His experience in Africa includes roles as a technical military cooperation advisor in Sao Tome e Principe in 2001, in Angola in 2008, and Mozambique since 2013. He has also served as a guest lecturer at civilian universities and as a researcher at the Center for International Studies at ISCTE. With that, let us begin. General, would you like to begin, please, by giving us a little information about the European Union Military Assistance Mission in Mozambique, and perhaps an overview of its mission, please?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. The European Union Military Assistance Mission in Mozambique stems from the previous UTM, European Union Training Mission in Mozambique, for 3 years. And after the request of the Mozambican government, the European Union decided to initiate a new mission, now oriented on in military assistance. Focus is specifically in improving FADAM capacities. FADAM is the Armed Forces of Mozambique, and these capacities are mainly the HQs, because the FADAM lack the capabilities to ensure the QRF, that were the mission for the UTM, in sustaining the operational cycle. UTM mission was to train and to equip 11 company-sized QRF quick reaction forces to fight terrorism in Cabo Delgado. And now our mission is to assist Mozambican authorities to ensure they are able to preserve the QRF combat power in the long term, to be sustained in the long term. And this means that we need to assist them in executing all activities to govern what we call the operational cycle of the QRF, that is regeneration, training, and employment. And since it is a non-executive mission, our main focus, of course, is oriented on regeneration and training. And one out of these three is most important for our mission. This is regeneration. Why? Because it entails a lot of activities on administration, on logistics, on command and control, on formal processes, and those are mainly the vulnerabilities of FADAM. So far, we concluded 13 programs, trained more than 450 officers and NCOs, because our mission now is focusing on train the trainers and on NCOs and officers that work on the general staff and other positions within the command and control system of the Mozambican Armed Forces. So this is our mission, and since the QRF were very effective since they were employed in Cabo Delgado. Our mission is to keep them fit, to maintain their effectiveness, and if it is possible, to improve their effectiveness. I don't know if it is enough.
Very good. Thank you very much. How would you assess the adaptation of the mission from the previous European Union training mission to the current military assistance mission in terms of operational effectiveness?
Well, the training mission, as I told you, was focused on training the 11 company-sized quick reaction forces. And the information we have about their effectiveness in Cabo Delgado is that they are much, much better than the regular troops that were engaged before 2021. The UTM started on 2021, and the first QRF were employed in 2022. So since then on, all the operations carried out by the QRF were much, much effective than the previous ones carried out by the regular troops, and this is evidenced by reports we received, for example, from Tanzanian armed forces and from the Rwandese forces that are now in Cabo Delgado, as you know. And more important than that, all information we obtain from the non-governmental organization and other international organizations that are now in Cabo Delgado, mainly for humanitarian purposes, they say that the QRF are a high standard military force, and for us is very important because the main purpose of the QRF are to protect the civilians in Cabo Delgado, and this is, of course, their main focus.
And sir, part of our Southern Talks is as much as possible to try and understand the local perspective in relation to the issues that we're discussing. So my curiosity would be, how are your efforts perceived and accepted by the local populations, as well as the military personnel that you are doing such a good job in supporting?
Thank you. According to what is published regularly, not only in the newspapers but in social media, the human mission is very well accepted, welcomed, and of course it is a kind of publicity inside my work, but we are prized by all that know our work. So, and if we had any doubt about it, all the activities during the riots between October last year and January, as you know, the situation after the elections here, the QRF, all the forces trained by the European Union showed a high profile, and they were very, very important during the riots, even to decrease the level of hostility between the police and the population. And we have some information that they, in several cases, they had assisted the population, so they were very welcomed. And of course, it was very important for the European Union to acknowledge this performance.
Thank you very much. Let's see. And may I ask you this? Through the European Peace Facility, the European Union has provided 89 million euro in support of the Mozambican armed forces for the purchase of non-lethal equipment for the 11 rapid reaction forces that you've mentioned already, created under the previous training mission. Is this assistance planned to continue, do you think, in terms of financial support for the purchase of further non-lethal equipment? And if so, is the mission expected to be extended beyond June 2026?
Well, the EPF provided these 89 million euros for non-lethal equipment. For example, the number of vehicles is more than 300 vehicles. That is very important for the QRF effectiveness. The fund made possible to acquire a lot of important equipment for the QRF. But now UMAM is focused on assisting, on advising, on mentoring, on monitoring, and we don't know whether it is to be extended or whether we have more system measures. But what we can say is this is to be decided at the political level, and our mission is to finish by June 26th next year, and that's the time frame and the conditions we have for accomplishing our mission. But of course, as you know, regularly the European Union starts the process for strategic revision and to assess the assistance measures. And for example, in this period, that's what some teams of the European External Action Service is doing now, and of course we will be integrated in their assessment and in their work. But for now, it's June 26th, and everything to be decided at the political level.
I understand. I certainly hope that a renewal of the process goes ahead without any delays. Now, I'm wondering if we can move on to discussing the security situation in Mozambique. How would you characterize the security situation at the moment, particularly in the northern parts as we speak? And please.
Okay. Well, the fact in Cabo Delgado, the situation can be characterized by complexity, because there are a lot of causes for what is going on. Not only the internal situation, but even the relationship between the terrorist groups and maybe other terrorist groups in the neighboring countries. And what is more important to highlight is that the population is the object and is suffering not only, unfortunately, only by the terrorist actions, but as well by the meteorological conditions, like the huge storms they are used to suffer in Cabo Delgado that worsen the situation, the situation of the condition of the population. But in fact, the situation is not good. But this is something that we are focused on, and our mission is to assist FADAM and to assist the Mozambican authorities to improve. Anyway, anything related to a security situation in a situation like in an environment like this, an insurgency type environment, is not to be assessed in 1 month or 2 months or 6 months, but it takes time, it takes years, because the military dimension is only one dimension, a small dimension. Normally, it is not the most important, but it is very important, at least at the beginning, to create conditions for the other instruments to perform and to create the conditions for peace and stability for the population in Cabo Delgado.
Thank you, sir. And Have the areas controlled by the Islamic State, Mozambique, former Ansar al-Sunna, have they increased in size, decreased in size? Do you feel that over the last few years, the support for these organizations, terrorist groups, has increased, decreased? What's your overall feeling since you've been there?
Okay, we don't have, as you know, since we are a non-executive mission, we don't have first-hand information. So we don't have intelligence sensors in Cabo Delgado. Everything is the second-hand information, and it's based in our assessment. What we obtained is sometimes, of course, when the FADAM and the Rwandese troops and the Tanzanian troops press the terrorist groups, they are confined in very wooded, dense forests, where it is very difficult to carry on military operations. And sometimes when these press these tents, of course, they spread, and we have information about attacks all over Cabo Delgado, sometimes simultaneously. This may mean that sometimes they have some support from outside, some logistic support, but the situation now, it is not, how can I say, it is not worsening for a level that is unsustainable, but it is very difficult for us to assess in the short period. I have some assessments comparing, for example, January to May last year and this year. And for example, the number of attacks now this year is less than last year. But for example, the numbers of displaced population is higher than last year. So it does not fit, but because it is complex and difficult to understand, because this is not a situation that is provoked or originated only by security issues, but for example, the effects of the huge storms they normally face during the rainy season. So this is something that, of course, we measure and we try to address.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Without getting into anything classified, do you think that the terrorist groups in Mozambique have external support from any other actors outside of their own networks?
Well, theoretically, a terrorist group is normally organized and structured in a kind of a net organization. So it is a web with specific nodes, specific groups, and of course, everything can be linked not only between terrorist groups, but terrorists and the criminality, smugglers, and so on. So it is known that the ISM has links with other Al-Shabaab and Islamic State franchised groups in the neighboring countries. And of course, it is something that needs to be addressed with cooperation, with collaboration, with coordination between all the countries and all organizations that are involved in Cabo Delgado. And of course, it is something that is very important for our assessment and something that feeds the improvement of all our education and training programs we deliver to FADAM, because we regularly meet with other countries we regularly meet with non-governmental organizations and other international organizations that are working in Cabo Delgado to ensure that everything is coherent, is coordinated, and the most important information is shared between us. But of course, this is something that we know it is normal, it is common, like in other countries, specifically here in Africa. Every terrorist group has some links outside, maybe safe havens in the neighboring countries, because it is the way how they responded to military pressure.
That's very true. Thank you. And getting back to the perceptions of the local population, do you think that in general the local population are clear on the difference between terrorist groups and criminal organizations? And how do you think they perceive both or each individually?
I think it's a perception. It is something that we don't have. We did deep dive in this specific issue, but at least for the population that is suffering in Cabo Delgado, they know the difference between, of course, the terrorist groups and other armed groups, even organized criminality. In fact, we received some information. It is common in Cabo Delgado to have some armed groups that do not belong to the terrorist organization, and they are criminals that they predate the population, and they take advantage of the insecurity of course, because it is very, very difficult to control all the territory, all the itineraries, and this is an opportunity for the criminal groups. And of course, maybe some of those groups are linked to the terrorist groups, but we do not have a clear evidence of it.
Yes, indeed. These are very, very complex and intertwined issues, of course. Recently, Human Rights Watch reported that terrorist groups have ramped up abductions of children in northern Mozambique's Cabo Delgado province. Allegedly, most of the abducted children are being used for transporting looted goods, forced labor, forced marriages, and taking part in fighting as well. Is this a new tactic used by terrorist groups in Mozambique, or is it a continuation of what's been happening previously, do you think?
Well, we are aware about those reports. Unfortunately, children are being used as soldiers, and, for example, to provide logistic support for the terrorist groups, and it is a common course of action of the terrorist groups to recruit, and not only to recruit children, but to force the marriage for young girls. That's a way they terrorize the population, and they compel and they deter population, sometimes through the abduction of children. And of course, it is something that for us has it is of utmost importance, and international humanitarian law, human rights law, gender perspective is a pillar in our education and programs, because we cannot take the risk of having any Fathom soldiers to commit the same, I would say, the same crimes against the population, because, of course, it is counterproductive. And as I said, in our program, we put a high premium on those those matters: international humanitarian law, human rights law, gender, CIMIC, because of course protecting civilians is our main goal.
Absolutely, absolutely. The terrorist threat, the threat that you've been mentioning for the last few minutes in Mozambique, do you think it is very similar or quite different to other ISIS franchises across Africa? Do you see major local adaptations of the threat across Mozambique, or do you think it's quite uniform in Mozambique?
Well, we do not see a huge difference between the terrorist groups. We can witness the same course of action, the same actions in Puntland or in Nigeria or even in Congo. So there is not a huge difference between them. And for example, what we assess for example, in some intelligence reports we received is that some courses of action now that are carried out by ISM in Mozambique are the same as the group in Puntland, for example. So this is not a clear link, but this may indicate that there are some connections, some links, and they use the most effective courses of action. And in fact, we assess that sometimes they are using the same course of action. For example, roadblocks to get money, for example, the use of children, for example, for logistic purposes, because it is very difficult when the FADAM and the Rwandese troops are engaged in the area surrounding their bases. They use children for logistic purposes. So this is something that is very common in other regions carried out by other terrorist groups as well.
Thank you. That was very clear. Thank you very much. Now, slight change of tack. In relation to international and regional organizations, how do you think EUMAM fits in? And do you think there is much duplication of effort? Quite often when we discuss this topic with other experts around Africa, there does seem to be almost a traffic jam at times of so many different well-intentioned organizations, but not necessarily doing anything that different. And sometimes the opinion is that this can lead to less ability to be effective. What do you think the situation is like in that regard in Mozambique?
Well, when at the other operation you have a lot of countries, in this case member states, international organization, and other type of organizations, there is always a risk, not of jamming, but at least duplication of efforts. Here in EUMAM, I am authorized to coordinate with all member states that have projects in Mozambique, specifically in the defense domain, and we have regularly, sometimes monthly, meetings with some member states to avoid duplications and to coordinate. For example, we regularly meet with the Portuguese cooperation in defense domain. We regularly meet with the French. For example, we had a French team here under our coordination working with FADAM. We have a kind of official group that we call 5+, that is European Union. This is at political level and military level. European Union, Portugal, Great Britain, France, United States, for example, to avoid duplication. So we are not posing obstacles to anyone. It's exactly the opposite. and we received some requests to work within UMAM under UMAM coordination. This is a very good indication of the coordination we are reaching here in Mozambique.
Thank you very much indeed. And do you think there is much crossover, or there could be much crossover between the objectives of the EU mission and NATO in Mozambique?
Well, we overlap. We avoid the duplications, of course, as I told you. It's just the majority of the member states, the European Union, are NATO allies. So the same interests for the member states belonging to EU or NATO, of course, are the same. And we are putting a lot of effort in avoiding duplications. And if you look at the structural documents on NATO and on the European Union, both are focused on promoting peace and stability and security worldwide. And of course, it is the same for Africa. And Africa means, of course, a lot for Europe because it's the closest continent, and we have a long-term connection, a long-term relation with African countries.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Looking to the future, thank you for all of the information you've given us in relation to the past, the recent past, and the present. But looking to the future, how do you see how the UMAM will progress over the next 6 months to a year in terms of what it's doing already? And secondly, would you think there are opportunities for new changes to be included that might make the mission even more effective?
Thank you for the question. As you may know, we only start to work, we only start to deliver our assistance activities from late February on. And of course, what we deliver so far is the baseline for our project, and our project is based on 3 important pillars. The most one is the command and control. The other one is logistics, entailing transportation, supply, storing, maintenance of the BF equipment to keep the QRF fit in combat power, and formal processes. Those 3 pillars address what we assessed are the FADAM most important vulnerabilities. So, in the next 6 months until June 26, taking into account that our mission, our mandate ends on next year in June, is to ensure that everything we've done so far is integrated in FADAM structure, mainly in their education and training system. Why this is important? Because it's through the education and training systems everything can be sustained in long term, because those education and training systems are focused on officers and NCOs, and they are the professionals, and they are the ones that can maintain our deliverables. Of course, we are facing a lot of challenges, mainly regarding lack of material capabilities of FADAM. I'm talking about good infrastructures, for example, money, some modern equipment, and even CIS equipment, computers, for example. Okay, and of course, these are the infrastructures, the means we need to implement what we think will keep FADAM with all the knowledge, all the skills to keep the QRF sustained and to replicate to the regular troops. And this is what is most important for us, to ensure that for the next 6 months, they can, from themselves, to start to keep what we deliver so far.
General Barroso, it has been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity, and on behalf of my team, thank you for letting us better known, at least inside NATO. And I can assure you that our team is moralized and is eager to deliver something good to Mozambique, because this country deserves, despite the challenges we are facing. Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much indeed. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.